no one wants to be that person.
What does this officially make you now?
Or make us think about, hey, what about me? What about me?
I disagree with you, man. I think there are people who are that person.
I don't think the government should tell us how to live our lives, and I don't like the fact that technology is starting to mold our minds and how we think about life and putting agendas into our mind as everything's propaganda. The goal of politics is not to convince the other side to jump sides. It's to incentivize more people on your side to show up to vote. Let's go! Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are. Welcome to the Matt Kim Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kim, joined by my co-host, Mr. Peter Saddington.
What's up? What's up, everybody? Welcome to the end of July.
It is already?
Yeah, it's July 30th, brother.
Wow.
Can you believe it? It's
dude,
almost
where
August.
has the year gone?
It is crazy to imagine that over half this year has already gone by. I don't know about you, but I feel this really interesting tension of being ridiculously productive, but at the same time, ridiculously behind. Does that make sense?
That's kind of how I feel all the time. So many things going on, trying to make so many things happen, really running into a problem of time resource. Time is the most valuable resource in the world, and I really need an extra 2 or 3 hours. It's not even an hour extra a day. I need like 3 hours extra per day.
Probably more like 6 or 7.
I would love like a 40-hour day.
For sure. So everybody, welcome to the Matt Kim Podcast. We should probably start off with a smash the like button, join the Discord, join the Telegrams, join all the things. Definitely check us out. We got a swag store as well. But let's start off with, it's been a while. It's been a couple weeks. You and I hung out in Tennessee. You've been up and down. Just catch everybody up. What has happened and transpired over the last 14 days or so that almost seems like a lifetime ago?
Well, first, I do want to show off my new hat. I brought it. I haven't shown you the hat yet, but I got a cowboy hat because I was in Tennessee and I was in Nashville, and I've always wanted a cowboy hat. And I've been struggling. I was sitting there at the cowboy hat store, and I'm like, excuse me, sir, but can you help me pick out a hat? Because I don't know anything about cowboy hats. And if I pick the wrong hat, everyone's going to think I'm weird, and it's going to be ridiculous. So I need help picking out a hat. He helped me pick a hat. And I was like, look, for obvious reasons, it may look funny. So I need help picking out the right hat.
Where's this hat, bro?
Hold on.
All right, we need to get this hat, guys.
I got the hat.
Where's the drum roll? All right. And here we have it. There we go. Matt Kim, the cowboy, is here.
Can I put on these headphones with...
No. No, do it from the behind, like this. Do it like that.
Let me see.
If you can do
Let
it
me
like
see
this.
if this works.
Yeah. That kind of works out. Kind of, sort of not. Kind of, sort of not. But look, what do you guys say? We could put a poll up later on the X.
I think I'm going no headphones today because I got to wear the hat.
We could put a survey up on the Discord channel. What do you guys say? Should Matt continue to rock the Tennessee cowboy hat? What does this officially make you now?
I mean, white adjacent? Okay.
Redneck adjacent.
We hear this phrase all the time. Cultural appropriation.
Okay, man.
How often have you heard that phrase? Cultural appropriation.
Well, what does it even mean, man?
Well, I saw the Asian community really mad at Starbucks.
Really?
Because Starbucks were doing a boba in their drinks for the summer. And people were like, that's an Asian thing. You can't have popping boba. So that was the thing. Apparently, I saw it on Next Shark. They were complaining about it.
So I think what cultural appropriation means is that the society has become so weak that we have to find ways to be oppressed, find ways to be offended, and find ways to be insulted by other people's actions in the way that they appear.
Okay. Then question. If you are and we're totally not recapping, I guess. We're just going to move on. We'll go back to that later.
We'll go back to the last 3 weeks of Matt's life later. We're jumping right into cultural appropriation.
Cultural appropriation. If you are the Karen at Starbucks, or you're the Karen at the grocery store or at the restaurant, whatever, and you're the lady that complains about everything.
You mean like society's police?
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. You complain about everything.
Yeah.
My hot coffee is too hot. I want a refund.
Oh, they have I want to speak to the manager haircut.
I want to speak to the manager.
Yeah.
I got a dozen apples and one of them looks a little bruised. So like, who's gonna
who's gonna wash my feet, who's gonna bend over so that I can P Diddy them, and who's gonna make sure that I can ruin their day because certainly this apple is not going in the basket.
And no one wants to be that person. It's kind of annoying. No one wants to be around that person.
But I would disagree with you, man. I think there are people who are that person and they desire to be that person. Like that is their MO. That's their modus operandi.
And I would argue that that person actually lives life cheaper. They actually get discounts on everything in life because they're always complaining.
Oh, so you're saying they're actually Asian?
Well, there's something that I realized is that the people who complain and make a stink about their position in the world or their position in society, or make a stink about, hey, what about me? What about me? They actually end up getting more of what they want.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. Okay, so at the very tactical, very local level, that's where we capture most of the Karens, right, out in the wild, right? Because that's if you're going to go on a safari, you're going to go to the local malls, the local places where Karens like to congregate and make a mess of things. And so the local level, the Karens are deeply annoying because they're constantly complaining about things that don't matter. And they're constantly bringing the conversation back to themselves, how their life has been interrupted. They have been abused by you because you're wearing this cowboy hat or you're drinking boba that clearly you're not allowed to drink because
howdy,
right? Because if you're not Asian, you're not allowed to do these things. So we see the Karens in the wild that are ridiculously annoying. But what you're saying is that type of personality trait also is in people who make policy decisions and people who make decisions that move our government and move our country forward or backward. Is what
the
you're saying.
people that the loudest complainers end up getting appeased, and they actually get a lot of stuff. For example, if you are,
it's like the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yes, because on this channel and in most of what we do, we're not the identity politics people.
Are you sure?
I mean, I identify as a cowboy right now.
Well, I identify as a billionaire.
But you know what I mean? We're not the beat my drum, beat my chest, and like, hey, we're Asian. Like, you have to notice us people.
Yeah, we certainly don't claim any victimhood here.
No, but
should we?
It's a question.
Should we take advantage of it? Should we be like, hey, woe is me, I'm a poor Asian?
Everyone's talking about, Kamala's running for government, and she's gonna get the black vote. The part of the left black complain so damn much that they get entire black vote. It becomes a thing. The Latino vote. Everyone talks about the Latino vote, the black vote, the Asians,
the gay vote,
the trans vote, the everything vote.
Yeah.
The only vote we actually don't ever talk about or hear about is the Asian vote. Because the Asian community actually doesn't do a lot of chest beating.
That's true. It is a cultural consideration.
And because we don't, and maybe today's identity politics type of conversation, and we are not typically the identity politics people. However, I think it's fair to have the conversation, especially because I got the cowboy hat on.
So I think we should define terms first and foremost, because identity politics has been around for a while. But like, what is this? What is this cultural? This is our context, right? Cultural appropriation in identity politics. What the hell is it? What is it? What is cultural appropriation to you? What does that mean, Matt?
I've struggled to define it. Actually, can you find an official definition for us,
It'd be nice
William?
to have an official definition, because I don't know if I even know what this is. Like, what is the level? What is the level in which what you are doing becomes or moves into the threshold of cultural appropriation? For you, for example, you're wearing this hat, which clearly this regular hat, which clearly makes you Asian. But once you put on the cowboy hat, are you now culturally appropriating a minority in America, the white man?
Is that the cowboy?
Well, white men are a minority in America. I mean, shouldn't white men be a protected class?
Cultural appropriation is the inappropriate or unacknowledged adoption of an element or elements of one culture or identity by members of another culture or identity. What the hell does that mean?
Let's break this down. Let me read this thing. I want to read. Cultural appropriation takes place when members of a majority group adopt cultural elements of a minority group in an exploitative, disrespectful, or stereotypical way. So the foundation of cultural appropriation is majority group take minority group and use minority group to benefit the majority group, which is fascinating because the minority group in America is actually white men and white women. And they're most usually blamed for cultural appropriation of minority groups that are growing in larger mass day by day. Fascinating.
So, am I not culturally appropriating for wearing a cowboy hat?
Well, since you said that Asian is white adjacent, number one,
It's really confusing, by the way.
number one, you
This
are
conversation goes nowhere.
you are racist. Number one. Number two,
Nice.
you are a bigot.
Nice.
Number three, you are a sexist. And number four, you should have no opinion in the world because you're white adjacent, is what I'm assuming, because you're part of the / majority that's taking advantage of the majority of the minority, which is actually the minority that's actually the majority.
Oh, I'm spinning.
Yeah, I don't think I make any sense either.
That's literally the definition, though. It just gets you spinning.
Well, let's go back to this Kamala thing. The race for the White House, when for all intents and purposes with Kamala, is going to be on two ideas.
Yes.
She's black. Not really.
Not really.
She's actually Indian. Is she actually like Jamaican Indian?
She's like a quarter black, a quarter white, or an eighth white.
So she's actually an octoroon.
And then her one side is Indian. She's actually, of anything, she's most Indian over anything else.
Okay.
I believe.
So if we were to categorize her, I can't believe I'm remembering this from high school, like anthropology. She's an octoroon.
Is that a real word?
Yes, it's a real word. It's
I feel like we need to fact check that
It's
one.
like you're an eighth black.
I feel like
or
you're making up
something
that
like
word. Yeah, Will's literally fact checking it.
Well, watch me be right. Mr. Smith, that anthropology class, you told us it was going to be useful.
You lied.
No, I just used it. I just used it. Octoroon,
Octoroon,
a person who's 1/8 black by descent.
Whoa.
I've done it. I've done it, guys. Mr. Smith, anthropology class, we did it. You've achieved your master stroke of greatness. I have used my education in the real world. Look at that.
Word of the day, octoroon. A
person-
person who is 1/8 black by descent.
Yep, so she's an octoroon.
Interesting.
She's not really black.
Would that be a campaign slogan?
I'm an octoroon.
Yeah.
I'm sure all the racist people would be like, that sounds a lot like orangutan. So she's not black. No, she's black, but not black, but Indian, person of color. She's a person of color and she's a woman. Those two things right there are going to be the primary messages and narratives that they're going to beat us over the head with, which I think, frankly, is actually a stroke of narrative genius. Can I explain why?
Okay.
First off, you don't want to be the person that votes against the first woman. And you don't want to be considered a racist. So you definitely don't want to be known as the person who voted against a black person or a person of color. And so these two narratives are perfect. They slot right into the pocket of the narrative that they've been using for over a decade. You're a racist. You're a sexist. You're a homophobe. You're all these things. These identity politics. This idea of cultural lack of sophistication, not appropriation, but since you don't understand the black plight, the Indian plight, the colored man plight, you don't understand the plight of the woman, right? You don't understand these things, so you don't have an opinion, number one. Number two, you have no right to vote unless you're going to vote for the progressive party of goodness. That's how it's going to work out. And if you don't like it, then you're obviously voting for Orange Man Bad, and you don't want to vote for Orange Man Bad because he's not good for America. He's anti everything that we just talked about. Anti-woman. He grabs people by the poontang.
So
That's it.
as far as voting, a lot of people will say, of course I want to vote for the first woman president.
Do they though?
And a lot of women will say, of course I want to vote for the first woman president. You have to say it out loud. I feel like a lot of the women will get to the voting booth, given the choice of voting for the first woman, and Kamala Harris will be the first woman. They're like, oh, not like this.
Really?
Not like this.
You think so?
She's really off-putting.
But
Like, we all know her. She's the Karen.
she is the Karen, but she is unburdened.
By what has been.
And what will be. Like, she has no burdens in life. And she believes so strongly in equity, not equality, right? You've seen those tapes?
We have.
Yeah. I mean, she's going to make sure that everybody ends up in the exact same spot. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that profound? Isn't that life-changing? Isn't that exactly what the entire world wants? Is that, as Kamala would say, we all didn't start in the same place of fairness, right? And you were grown up with a silver spoon and I wasn't. But Kamala is going to make sure that no matter the differences in how we started, we are all going to end up equal at the end. Ain't that great? Ain't that something to smile about? Ain't that something where sunshines and rainbows make your day? Come on, that's worth voting for, baby. Let's go. Come on, Kamala.
Isn't that really attractive to some people?
It is. It is.
Just the idea of that.
Yeah, because no, she's not about communism, brother. You got it all twisted. She wants to make sure everybody's equal. That means that you can earn and you can make a living just as good as Taylor Swift. And you can make a living just as good as Oprah. You can make a living just as good as all of these other people out there, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you started, as Kamala would say. It matters where you end up. And she's going to make sure that we all end up fair, equal, fat, happy. Oh, I mean, I can't wait to be ruled by Kamala. She's going to be like the greatest monarch of positivity and good juju ever.
But isn't that politics? Politicians telling you exactly what you want to hear.
I like hearing it. I feel like I'm unequal.
And when you hear what you want to hear, you are more apt to choose a side that you resonate with.
Yeah. Am I selling her good?
Therefore, the Democrats like to pander to the black community because they feel like they have ability to get that vote, which is weird because they don't do anything for the black community, but they speak to them constantly.
So can we unpack that for a second? Don't you think that's actually one of the most racist and demoralizing things you can actually do?
I mean, isn't it really bad for business to constantly give Karen the discount for complaining? But for Karen, it's actually really effective.
It is effective because the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Correct.
Right? The bent nail gets the hammer.
So if the world is broken, if society is broken, if the government is broken, and the best you can do is just get a little bit of peace for yourself and your own community, whatever you identify with, isn't there an argument that you should be doing that?
But the Karens won't let you alone, because the Karens will make sure that no matter where you are, there is no peace. This is part and parcel of being a Karen. Part and parcel of being a Karen is you cannot turn off the absolute amount of victimhood that you have. It's part of the Karen model.
And that's how we perceive it from the outside. But for the Karen herself, she's probably at peace with who she is.
And she
don't bother her.
No.
It doesn't bother her that she's that lady. Like, that's just part of who she is.
I disagree.
And she's getting her apples for free, and she gets her coffee for free, and she gets her extra fries at McDonald's for free, and you pay for them. And she's telling you, you're such a sucker. You pay full price for shit. I get a discount. I have more money in my pocket because I complain. You didn't want to spend 5 minutes to complain because you're worried how people perceive you. Actually, my life is better. One Karen could argue.
I don't think you really believe that.
I mean, I'm just saying.
There's no way.
Well, I don't believe that.
There's no way that you have
peace. They would believe that.
I don't think so. I think they deal with some of the biggest amount of cognitive dissonance. There's no way that you live in peace when you are constantly looking for ways to be upset.
But haven't we already determined that most people that plug into the matrix, the ones that know the steak isn't real, but I want it anyway, actually, ignorance is bliss.
We'll still fight over the lack of salt on the fake steak, is what you're saying.
And it's still good. Mentally, it still tastes good.
So I feel like, because I've watched, interestingly enough, and this never happens, but I just love the conversation so much with Sean Ryan and you. I watched it twice in the background while I was working. I mean, it's a long conversation. And certainly the clips that you've been cutting up help bring me back, because I was like, oh man, I wanted to hear the context of what he was talking about. So I feel like a lot of this is kind of stemming from your conversations with individuals like Sean Ryan, where he pushed back on a couple of things.
Yeah,
more than a couple of things,
which I thought was amazing.
I loved. It what it created is a profound and open-hearted conversation, which I absolutely loved. And what I found, if I can just create a simple model here for everybody listening who haven't watched the Sean Ryan podcast, you have to watch it. Totally worth it. Like, go do that now. Open it up in another tab. But one of the things that I extracted from that conversation is this push-pull between you and Sean of like, when is enough enough, and when should we give it up? Right? And it's not that you guys came to any conclusions, but I feel like this conversation that we're having right now is a piece of that, which is like, should we just give in to the Karens and just allow them to roam and rule? Or is there a time to fight? Like when you started talking about governors of different states coming together, like, bro, say less.
Yeah.
I would love that. Yeah. I would love to be a fly on the wall to have the governors of southern states come together. You know, Sean Ryan would say, you know, in a secret place, you know, do we really want that, is what he said. But it's like, maybe that's what needs to happen. Are we at that precipice, Matt? You're certainly closer to the pulse of America than most people.
I think the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I think that's the reality of the situation we're in. I was in a, every once in a while, I'll jump randomly into this Facebook group, like they do a monthly call. They call themselves Badass Asians.
Badass Asians. We're giving them a shout out, guys. Yeah. Badass Asians.
I'm giving the Badass Asians a shout out. And they're like these Asian guys that get together, I think once a month, and they just kind of talk, and they're from all over the world. So Asian diaspora that just spread out all over the world. A lot of them are in the United States. Some of them are living in Japan. Some of them are living in Korea, like all over the place. Some in like Taiwan, whatever it is. And you know, and I was on there and I was talking about kind of the ideas that I have. And obviously I'm a really conservative person by nature. And I am a big freedom person. And I don't think the government should tell us how to live our lives. And I don't like the fact that technology is starting to mold our minds and how we think about life and how it's putting agendas into our minds. Everything's propaganda, talking about these types of ideas. And one guy that lives in Japan, he said to me, Matt, I understand what you're saying. What freedoms, what is there in life that I can't do? That's a really good question.
I can think of a couple.
We talk about freedom all the time, and we say we're losing freedoms. But realistically, in a normal person's life who just wants to provide and take care of their family, which is most people, what is it that he can't do?
Well, I can think of a lot. Well, it's the short answer is it's always relative, right? For someone like you are constrained. I mean, you cannot do your business, you cannot do your passion effectively because the technology overlords and oligarchs, et cetera, and government, et cetera, are shadow banning you, censoring you, deleting your stuff. So
understand, but not everyone is trying to change the world.
Right. Okay, well, brother's trying to change the world. You heard it here first, guys, on the Matt Kim podcast. I like hearing this. This is some action items. Yeah, to the average American who just want to collect a paycheck, you know, survive, you know, have their families, go to soccer games on Saturday and Sunday, right? They're relatively free. I think the biggest problem though is the money. The biggest problem that constrains everybody is our broken monetary system. That affects everybody. Piece, full stop. Like I have with receipts of my family eating a Chipotle burrito that was $5.85.
Yeah, but if you have a pretty good job, you have a pretty stable career, you're one of these people that if you're not happy at your job, you can just apply for another job, get it somewhere else. You have kind of flexibility. You can actually live in a different country if you choose to do so.
Fair enough.
Which is a huge population of society. And actually, especially amongst the Asian community, that's how a lot of people live. I don't like California. I'm just going to live in Japan for like 3 years because I can work remote. A lot of them are in tech, they software engineers or whatever. I'm just going to go work in, Taiwan. I'm just going to go work in Korea. I'm going to come back and I'm just going to live in Dallas for like another 6 months. And a lot of people live like that. Not everyone's confined to where they are. A lot of people live in a global economy.
Yeah, but I would actually argue that more people live a sedentary, non-mobile, don't move more than 12 miles outside their radius. There are families from this area, their generations from this area, their cousins are hanging out 2 blocks away. I mean, like,
But that's awesome too.
it is awesome, but those people can't do anything that you just said. These guys are tradesmen, right? They can't just pick up and say, I'm going to move to Dallas and do my trade over there. No, we spent 26 years hanging out in this small town, and that's how you built your little trade, and you're making 70 grand a year just barely scraping by. And like, I think most people are relatively stuck where they are, and that creates the tension, that creates the issues, that creates the frustration, because they don't have the mobility that you and I have. Let's be honest.
But
you and I have mobility, man.
Not having that mobility isn't a government problem. It's not a societal problem. It's an education problem.
It's an education and money problem. Right?
Money problem,
It
but
costs a lot of money to move, right? There's a lot of things to consider.
and we know because we live online that it reminds me of a conversation I had with Pastor Doug Wilson when I asked him about technology, and I said, "I've looked everywhere, but I can't find iPhone in the Bible. What does the Bible say about technology?" And he said, "There's nothing in the Bible that specifically says iPhone or technology, but it talks about wealth, and technology is actually wealth." And I thought about it. I was like, he's right. We've been convinced to believe that currency and money is wealth. Actually, we all have the equal amount of wealth if we consider technology to be wealth. We actually can do whatever we want in our lives if we really choose to do so. If we decide we're going to spend 5 hours a day for the next year focusing and learning on one thing, we could learn it for free, and you can become actually very competent at it.
Yes.
It's not that you don't have the ability. You have all the wealth you need. It's at your fingertips for literally almost every single person in the world. We're just told to believe that money is the currency. Money is the currency of wealth, but it's technology and information and data. And if you start looking at that perspective, then anyone could actually do it.
Oh, for sure.
If you just turned off Netflix, your daily Netflix consumption, you turned off your sports consumption, you turned off your bar consumption, and you took those hours that you get on a daily basis, which is 4 to 5 hours every single day, and you focus it on something else, learning something different, something that you want to do, actually anyone can change.
Fair enough. So you're not wrong. It is an education thing. But man, like the education thing is so tightly coupled, Matt, to intrinsic internal motivation, assertiveness, gumption, right? Taking action. I think there is a absolute slumber that has been placed across the entire world, and the slumber is this idea of just since we have so much wealth, this wealth and this technology and access that we have, it has made us exponentially lazy.
But that's not a political problem. That's not a societal problem. That's a personal, individual problem, isn't it?
I think the personal individual flows downstream from culture and technology, right? I mean, you had to be much more, self-sufficient back in, let's say, 40, 50, 60 years ago, for sure, right? You actually had to fix your car, right? You probably had experiences like this when we had to fix our cars back in the 80s, right? It was just cheaper to do so, and the cars were easier to deal with, not as much electronics, right? These types of things. We learned how to build computers. I learned how to build computers. I broke my first computer in '93. I remember saving up $6,500 for my first real computer as a Pentium 2 Gateway 233 with MMX technology. Like $6,000 it cost me.
Can we Google that? I don't think that's a real computer.
Google
Fact check the computer.
Google it right now. Pentium 2 Gateway 233 with MMX technology. I know exactly what you're going to find. It's awesome. It's going to be an awesome computer. And so the point I'm trying to make is that I think personal individual responsibility and personal accountability flows downstream from culture. Culture has given us all of these amazing blessings in technology, and it gave us so much access that we actually no longer have the need or desire to actually problem solve. Most kids will never know how to fix a computer. Why? They've never needed to. They're not going to need to change the oils. Why? Because there's too many services to do that. They're never there's so many facets of what you and I grew up on that was so analog that the only thing we could do was figure it out. And so I think that Pentium 2 233 with MMX Technologies, right there.
That's a real computer.
Real computer, guys.
Damn, fact checked him twice today.
You can't defeat
You're at
me.
100% just for today.
You can't.
We're gonna get you once.
You can't defeat me when it comes to technology, guys. I know too much about this shit. So yeah, I think we live in a world where personal responsibility and laziness is an outgrowth of accessibility and ease. Right? We've given up so much of our freedoms. Let me give you something that people don't often calculate.
But again, you said we've given up freedoms, and I'm trying to figure out what freedom we've given up. I mean, I get it because I deal in this space.
Yeah.
But most people, I'm talking about majority of people, not even just Americans, global citizens.
Like I said, the biggest thing that hits everybody is the purse. The money, our money system is so broken that until the money system gets fixed, then everything else, frankly, falls secondary to everything else that we're doing.
But if you're your standard city liberal, which is like most cities in the country at this point, actually most cities in the world are skewed very liberal.
Yeah, they're cesspools of degeneracy for sure.
And they're like, dude, what do I care if someone wants to chop off his dick? Don't bother me.
It doesn't, but...
What do I care if we want to give homeless people more money? Like, maybe it's not going to them. I don't care. I see them all the time. Like, at least we're trying.
So you're making a case for...
I'm just trying to understand the other side.
Well, yeah, I think your questioning is good. I think you're making a pretty significant case for non-interventionism, which is just like let everything live, and I'm not going to be involved, and I'm going to unplug from the matrix, and you guys do what you do. However, at the end of the day, though, you are a man of legacy. You are a man of values and principles, and you have a beautiful family and a amazingly beautiful soul under your care as a daughter. And I would take a gander and say that you most likely would prefer that your daughter lives in a better world than you lived in. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree.
So that is
but if you
part
work
and
hard
parcel of
and
why you
you're
do what you
able
do.
to control your environment, and you spend a lot of time with your children, and you raise them right, and you overinvest in your children, like they're going to be all right.
You sound like a 70-year-old man sitting in Tennessee, having a nice late night cap, discussing his life as he sees it, and he looks at you under the furrow of his brow with a tipped chin, and he looks at you and he says, "At the end of the day, I lived a good life, Matt. I did my wife solid. I did my kids solid. They launched successfully. They have great careers and great families. That's all I could ask for." Is that the end of the story?
I mean, isn't that the dream for most people?
I think it is. And in none of that do we talk about politics or trans or people cutting off penises.
Because it doesn't affect your life if you teach them properly.
And so you have to question,
Okay,
you have to wonder then, is the only way to epic freedom to become a pure capitalist where you can own 23 acres of land and a multi-million-dollar home and look at your kids and say, one's a doctor, one's a lawyer, one married into, I mean, is that the end game? Is that final boss?
I mean, I don't think for me. My argument was, in the war of people's minds, if it means that my family and my children live less financially capable, but it allows them to live free, I would rather live in District 11. I would rather live free. However, most people actually don't mind plugging in if it means they have a stable life, means their children have a stable life, and if it means you have to accept certain things in order to live in stability. I think I understand them. Like, not everyone wants to be a social warrior. Not everyone wants to be a political warrior. Not everyone wants to be a religious warrior.
Fair enough.
They just want to live in compliance, because through compliance is order.
Well, number one, maybe they're not.
I'm just strawmanning the other side for people like, oh, Matt's lost his shit.
No,
like, I'm just trying to think it through.
I like this conversation because
that's what the guy said. He's like, dude, I just wanted my paycheck. I just want to go to dinner once or twice a week. I want to eventually have kids, and I want them to have an opportunity, and I want them to do well in school so that they can get a good job. And if they just stay away from all this political stuff, actually, it's a lot easier for them.
And they can stay relatively unscathed. So
And how can you kind of be mad at that?
You can't be mad at that, man.
But that's what we're fighting.
And so
that's where I'm at.
Well, that's where I was going with is number one, maybe, and there's two sides of this token, two sides of this coin, but I think maybe number one, they might not be your audience, but number two, they might be exactly your audience.
I think a lot of people are on that boat.
I think they're, and I'll tell you where I fall. I think they are exactly your audience. And it's not that we want to, jolt them out of their complacency, but I think opening up their minds to the larger narrative of the world stage is important. I think it's absolutely important. I find it hard. I find it hard to connect with, and this is just me, Matt. But I find it hard to connect with people who are like that. And I think there's a multiplicity of reasons why we don't connect, because I'm driven, right? I'm money oriented, family oriented. I'm globally minded, well traveled. Like a list could go on. And so, number one, there's not a whole lot for us to connect on because our life experiences, number one, have been so disparately different. But number two, I feel like a closed-minded worldview of like, this is my world, this is, everything's good, I'm going to do my thing, I got a job for 45 years, and then I'm going to retire, and we're going to have a little ranch, 12 acres, raise a cow, like this type of stuff. Like, it's respectful, but at the same time, the world is not going to be the same that you entered in. It's changing. And, if I may say, I don't see the world changing en masse to the better. I see it getting worse.
But again, if you look at life through a global worldview, if all you care about is yourself and your family, so what?
Nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, someone is going to. The cycles of history is that you cannot stay on the sidelines forever, Matt. The beast will come. The famine's going to come. And it always comes.
And the cowards or the ones that stay compliant throughout history, throughout every single engagement, actually are the ones that survive. It's the ones that are activists. It's the ones that are the fighters, the warriors. The people that fight in war are the ones most likely to die. Yeah. The ones that run to the back of the line and actually are cowards and don't actually shoot anybody, they're actually the ones that survive.
Yes, and what narrative and what story will they tell the Lord of Hosts? And on the day that they die and they meet the great Lord of Hosts, and he looks at them and he says, "What have you done with the life and the time that I gave you?" And they're going to look at him or her or whatever it is, and they're going to say, "Well, I got 12 acres of ranch. My daughter's a lawyer, and my son's a healthy business management consultant." I did a good life. And like, fuck that shit, man. That's not a life worth living, man. Like I don't think there's anyone, and of course I have not been there yet, but I don't think there's anyone on their deathbed that dies on their deathbed and said, "Man, taking the easy road and being a coward when it mattered really was those the hallmarks of my life. Those were the moments in which it counted the most." No, you want to be the man in the arena. You've heard of that. You want to be the man in the arena. You want to be the man who took the slices, took the cuts, took the punches, took the shots. You want to be the man that stands up, bloody and battered, looking at the crowd who's jeering and leering and yelling at you, whether they're positive or negative. It doesn't matter. It's all part of the noise. Because at the end of the day, like the man in the arena says, the man in the arena is the one who made the decision. The man in the arena is the one who took a stand. The man in the arena actually knows what he's made of. The man in the arena actually knows what suffering and what victory actually tastes like. And so I would rather have the extremes of life, which I think I've done exceptionally well. I've had a lot of suffering. I've had a lot of great wins. But I prefer those high highs and low lows as opposed to a mediocre life of stasis, man.
But in that analogy, there is 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 men in the arena fighting for their lives. 100,000 people watching, cheering, just being a part of it. Majority of people are in the seats, not in the fight.
And you, my friend, you have chosen to be in the arena.
I love it in the arena. I will go down with the ship fighting. I don't care. I'm just trying to think and consider the situation and the position of maybe other people or the other side or the people that maybe we're actively fighting against. Like, don't you have to understand your enemy? How come no one ever tries to figure out what the other side is thinking? It's always like, our side is right and this is why, and you guys are wrong. It's like, wait a second. Did you ever pause to think like why they think the way they do? No one ever takes that position. No one wants to do that exercise.
That's why I love the Matt Kim podcast, because we're the only ones willing to go to the other side and say, let me try to understand their mental models, their worldview, their philosophy of life. And if we move to a solutioning conversation, the solutioning conversation would sound like, now that we kind of understand these people, which we do, right? They just want to live lives. What's the best way of engaging them?
Well, look, again, so another guy said, well, I live in Korea, and I was like, what can I not do? I said, you have surveillance everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's dystopian ring, ding dong dang, welcome resident. We're going to be doing a sweep on building 4, 5, and 6. Have a great day.
Yep.
You have cameras in your lobby. You have cameras in the street. Every single car has a camera. Everywhere you go, it's surveillance 24/7.
Yep.
And he said, so what? What am I doing wrong? Why do I care? Why is that a big deal? Why is that such a big deal to you? What are you doing that you care that you're being surveilled? I was like, I don't like it. You know what I mean? I don't like the feeling, but that's just a feeling, just like their feeling of actually, we don't mind it.
Yeah, but
I'm not doing anything wrong anyway. What do I care? And I was like, damn, dude. That's a good point. It's such an obvious point. How can we never consider that?
It is a very tactical and short-term thinking view, Matt. And I know, and I'm not mad at you. I'm just arguing at the argument. But it's a very shallow, short-term, tactical view of the world. It's like, it ain't bothering me, so I ain't going to worry about it. But look, the thing is that encroachment happens all the time.
So you have countries like Singapore, you have countries like Dubai, where you have one leader, and they surveil, they run their society in a certain way, and it actually works for them.
It does. Yeah, Middle Eastern countries are all just rich oligarchs, and they run the country. Yeah, absolutely.
And it actually works.
Yeah, the Saudi family, and yeah.
So it's not like this idea of surveillance never works. It's proven to work in certain areas. Maybe it doesn't work here in the United States because we're too big of a country and our government is too damn corrupt. Maybe that's the problem.
Well, when you say it works, if I were to translate that, you mean that it allows those in power, the oligarchs, to maintain power. That's what you mean.
But they also live in safe societies. There's no crime. They have a higher standard. Their lowest level of living is higher than the lowest level of living in this country.
For the citizens, not the migrant workers who are often building the cities. In
a country, like, you're responsible for your citizens, not everybody. So, like, it is what it is.
Fair enough.
But if you're a citizen of that country, and you live in Dubai, like, you have a certain standard of living that you enjoy. And there's one guy that makes all the rules. It's actually kind of authoritarian, but he's like a pretty good guy.
Yeah.
And everyone's okay with it.
Well, he's a benevolent dictator, right? And that's what you kind of want. Now, so here's my argument against that, which is why I go back to the worldview argument, where I think it's important that people actually have a global worldview. Because history doesn't repeat, but it certainly rhymes, right? It doesn't repeat, but it certainly rhymes. And the rhyme goes like this. Power corrupts completely over time. And that's just the nature of the beast, is that every single power struggle in history has always ended up very, very, very poor for the citizenry. And so the question really is, are we in the fourth turning, which I'm sure you've seen and heard about, or are we in the third part or the second part, which I don't believe, which is like the second is growth, and awakening. The third part is, massive capitalization, people expanding and growing, and then there's begins to be kind of the noticing that happens in the third phase, and then the fourth phase, the turning, is when revolution happens. People are upset, and the system is no longer working for us. So the question I have to ask is, what stage are we in history? And if we are in the fourth stage, where the system is no longer working for people, then your complacency on your 12 acres of land is going to be invaded. And you're going to wonder why you didn't say no earlier, when they are corralling you into boxcars to sites and detention centers 200 miles away. I mean, let's be honest. If Hitler and the story that goes in Germany, putting people together in boxcars, if that moment happened during 2021, 2022, 2021 in America, we would lose hundreds of millions of Americans who literally would walk into those boxcars in 2021 with the mask on and saying, "Yes, Amasa, I believe you're taking me to the right place." Like, it didn't happen, but it's going to happen. It happens in every country over history when the power gets to a point of corruption. It always happens. Matt, am I wrong? You want to fact check me on this one too?
I agree with you. I mean, obviously, that's why we do what we do.
And so that's my argument, is that you can be complacent to the point where it's too late. And I don't think that's a good position to be in. I think if you're coming, let's just say from a faith model says, and you quoted this, always be prepared for the answer of why you have the hope in what you do, right? And Christians specifically are supposed to be prepared, right? If we go back to the Acts and we go back to the time of Paul, he was talking to the Bereans, and the Bereans were like, "Hey, bro, I don't trust you. I'm going to verify," right? So you want to be like a Berean. You want to be assertive. You want to understand the facts. You want to understand what's going on. You don't want to be ignorant. You don't want to be ignorant of what's going on. And so I think Christians of any type of part of the population should be the most progressive, the most up to date, understanding how the world is changing so that they can guard themselves against the evils of the day, which is another Bible quote, right? And you know all this. And so I think if you're taking a Christian model, a Christian worldview, you are actually supposed to be one of the sentinels, right? The guards of the faith and the guards of goodness, and not let evil overrun, right?
But to be one of those sentinels, it is a lonely island.
Oh, brother.
There's actually not a lot out there.
It's lonely as hell.
Again, not everyone wants to be in the middle of the arena.
I just feel like there's a greater calling of man.
I mean, you feel it, I feel it. Just trying to understand the people that just don't want to go to war.
Sometimes when I'm feeling really snarky, Matt, like really snarky, almost to the point of being offensive.
Karen.
Yeah, sometimes. And it's only...
It's effective, see?
It's only... It's true. Like, when I want to be a Karen with other dudes, mostly it's at the track because, we're all frustrated, we're all upset, nothing's going right. We're all spending exorbitant amounts of money and shit's not happening. When I want to be a real Karen, sometimes I'll look at guys when they're super frustrated, they're all fucked up, and I'll just look at them and I'll say, like, what does it matter? What does it matter? And that fucks them up because they're just like, bro, come on, you're not gonna come at me like this right now. It's like, bro, like, what does it matter? Like, you can take this anchor home with you? You can take all this frustration home with you? You're gonna ruin the car ride home with your boy because things didn't go right? Are you making things worse for yourself? Right? And so I wonder sometimes, in these kind of moments, like, is this a way of waking people up from their stupor of their minuscule lives, of focusing on things that don't matter, and the larger picture? For me, it's always like, you're here with your son. Make it a good time. Make it a core memory. Right? I love using that. Make it a core memory. Make it something that when they look back, they're not thinking about their dad cussing and dropping F-bombs and just throwing shit, wrenches. I've seen shit. Like, it's just like you're and they're scarring their sons. And sometimes if I'm even more snarky, which I think is apropos to our conversation here, sometimes I'll just look at them and say, "Who hurt you?" It's like, who hurt you? Like that. Like, to ask the dude that is so offensive. Like, who hurt you, bro? Like, who hurt you, man? There's that fuck off, Peter, man. Fuck. It's like, no, but really, that's the question I would want to ask the complacent. What in your life has transpired? What has happened to the point where you no longer give a fuck? And that non-giving a fuck, that complacency, that non-assertiveness, that non-situational awareness. Like, you talk with Sean Ryan, he would be against everything that you just said. He'd be like, brother, be situationally aware. Know your enemy, right? Like, Sean Ryan, he's just like, he's strapped. He's ready to go, right? I think that needs to be a kind of a wake-up call. I'm certainly not the messenger for this. And clearly, Matt, you're far better at communicating these types of ideas. But I think that's part of the wake-up call. It's like, stop being complacent. There's going to be a day when the boxcar is going to come. It might not come for you, but it'll come for your kids.
Stop being complacent. On that note, the black community says, you guys don't do enough for us. You got to give us more money for the HBCUs. You have to give us more money for the inner cities. You have to do more stuff for the families. You got to invest in our businesses. And the government says, fine. You guys aren't going to be complacent. You guys are going to cause a fit about this. Here's more money. Here's more services. And you know what? We'll hold events specifically for you.
Yeah.
Latin community says, hey, like, we're not okay with this border situation either. But don't forget about us. Like, we're a big part of the vote. And both sides says, oh, we need the Latino vote. Latinos for Trump. Latinos for Harris. They come out because they cause a fit.
I like Joe Biden's Mexican breakfast tacos.
We'll go out and we'll get some breakfast burritos, everyone, while we're listening to some reggae or whatever the hell they
appropriation there.
Right? But they do it, and they cause a fit, and they're organized, and because of that, they get stuff.
Yeah. That's why Asians don't get any stuff, because we don't group up.
Okay.
And complain when whine.
The Asians tend to be the most complacent and apathetic. They just want to live their lives in kind of the situation that I described. We just want our children to have an opportunity. We just want to figure out how to assimilate best we can without causing a big scene. We're really annoyed that you won't let a lot of us in Harvard. Like, a lot of you guys weren't going to get in Harvard anyway, but that's a big thing. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Asians tend to live in these Asian cultural hubs. They actually don't leave those areas very much. If you live in LA and you're Korean, you live in either K-Town or you live in Orange County, and you actually don't go out of it very much.
Not wrong.
Kind of stay to yourself.
Not wrong.
Your problems are your problems. And if you live in Chinatown in New York, I know people said, oh, they're opening up a Chinese police station. No, the Chinese police station is there because police wouldn't help Chinese nationals or Chinese immigrants, so therefore they set up their own so they
Actually, the police have been there since day one.
So that they can monitor their own and settle their own disputes.
When they brought Chinese over to help build the railroad, they had actually Chinese overseers. Like, do your history. They had Chinese overseers and Chinese handlers that worked in conjunction with the white man to ensure that the Chinese people that were coming over would stay in line.
They want to self-contain themselves.
Yeah.
They want to manage their own societies.
Yeah.
And although they live in America, they live in Chinatown, and Chinatown is very different than the rest of America. Let us handle our own problems. That's really what that was. But because everyone kind of lives off by themselves and they don't really ask for anything, they don't demand anything. Have you ever been to or seen any of these Asian American like political things? They're like a joke.
They're a joke. And whenever you see an Asian political activist, usually it's a young Asian woman.
And they're the worst.
They're so cringe-worthy. They're so cringy. It's like, sister.
They don't motivate anyone. They don't get anyone emotionally involved.
Yeah.
It's you only watch them or follow them or you're a part of them because they're kind of the only ones that exist.
Yeah. And whenever the Asian girl is protesting, it's always muted. It's when I say muted, it's like, you're not effective. Like, get the black girl here or get the crazy blue-haired white fat chick. Like, she will be better.
Extremely effective.
Yeah. Right? Get the blue-haired fat chick.
Yeah.
Like, trust me.
She hasn't paid for Starbucks in 5 years.
Exactly. Don't I mean
extra whipped cream every single time.
Let's look at the meta of this. Asian women get zero victim loving. Like, you're an Asian woman. First off, white guys love you, right? Mexicans would love you if they could get you, right? Black guys love you, right? You have all of the exotic features of brown skin and tan, olive skin type stuff going for you.
Which is you're being fooled because, like sometimes Asian women are the worst.
I'm looking from the outside perspective, right? And
Suffering.
And frankly, the Asian women in corporate America are generally paid much higher than their white or black or other counterparts. Like, like when you see an Asian woman protest, you're like, sister, you married to a rich white dude who's making $450 a year. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like Kamala. Like, you look at Kamala and she's complaining. It's like, ain't you married to a white cuck?
But it's election season. They are literally just giving away benefits and money like it's candy.
Yeah.
For anyone that makes a fit, Here you go. We'll give you some stuff. Here you go. Here's a concert for you. Here you go. Here's maybe some extra facility or community center that we're going to build in your neighborhood because it's election season and we're trying to buy votes. And everyone that complains, you get something right now.
Yeah, the problem is all that money.
Don't you need to complain?
Yeah, you do. They do. But all the money goes to that one organizer who ends up buying 16 mansions for her homies. You've heard of that.
But isn't that better than not getting anything? If everyone's getting something?
Nobody's benefiting except the organizer.
If
If I had no soul and I was in politics, I would totally be an organizer. I'd be like BLM, all the things.
If you're in the street and a cash armored car blows up and there's money flying everywhere and it's not your money, but everyone else is running to grab the money on the floor and taking it home, should you pick it up or not?
No.
Because the right thing to do?
No.
You're the one that doesn't go home with money.
No.
Everyone else got free money.
No, it's because I know that our society is
That's the problem.
surveilled. And I know that cameras are going to see me picking
They're
up
not coming after anyone. If there's 100 people picking up money on the floor,
Are you kidding me? They
as
would.
an example,
I beg to differ. If that cash thing blew up, that truck blew up in front of me, I would be the guy that get arrested.
really, then who is going after the people that take all the money for homelessness in California, who run the grifts, who run the homeless shelters, who do all this? Something like $5 billion goes into it on an annual basis, and $4 billion of it goes into people's pockets. Who's going for that money? They're fine. No one's ever coming for their free money.
It's all the BLM people.
Yeah, and no one's coming for it.
They don't get. Remember the Summer of Love.
Yes.
Summer of Love, when all of these people, BLM supporters, rioted and looted and it created billions of dollars of damage across America. None of them were arrested.
Nope.
I would be arrested because I don't fit the narrative. So that's what I'm saying. If a armored truck blew up with money and a bunch of BLM type of people were there and they were all grabbing it, and then I grab it, I would be on the news. They would be saviors, and they would probably end up with a statue, maybe like
You're actually making
George
a really
Floyd.
good case for being a BLM writer then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because I don't fit the narrative.
Again, but that's how people think. I might as well join that side because that side, you don't get in trouble. You can kind of get away with a lot of what you do.
Yeah, if I had no morals, I would totally take advantage of it. But since I have morals and I know that I would be the scapegoat because everyone would be like, dude, where are all those other people stealing stuff? Oh, the Asian guy that actually looks
And then you become the Karen. Like, oh, thanks for narking on everybody.
Exactly.
Bro.
God, why are you selling me? I'm a person of color, brother. Like, you can't sell me out. You know? Why do I get the shaft?
I don't know. I think there's an argument to be made that maybe the Asian American community maybe should
Here's an idea.
demand.
What if you were to
Make
be
demands?
that guy? What if you were to be that guy? And do that guy and just be like,
And we're talking today
Asian
about
power, Asian power. Let's rise up the Asian generation for. Could you be that guy?
and we're talking about it, and this topic of discussion for the day. I'm not that guy because I'm not big on the identity politics thing. I don't think it's. I think another guy said.
I want a Texas hat now. I want a cowboy hat.
It's amazing.
It's
isn't it?
awesome.
Another kid, he said, I'm a software engineer. He lives in Michigan somewhere. And it's like, one of the other guys asked him, are you going to continue to live in Michigan? He's like, no, like, my lease is up in a month. And I think I'm going to move to either LA or Dallas or New York or Atlanta because I want to move where there's more Asian people. He lives in Michigan. There's nobody there. He's like, 95% of the people in my area where I live are white. I want to live around Asian people.
That's a foolish thing.
And
He's young. He doesn't realize that.
And I didn't want to
living with white people is the best thing.
And I didn't want to ruin it for him.
You want to let him fail? You should just be like, bro, living around white people is actually the best decision you can entirely make.
Because when you're young,
progeny.
You're searching for identity, you're searching for community, you're searching for people.
You mean degeneracy?
And the reality is that people look for community, and people look for. They think that finding people that look like them will solve their internal problems. That the hole they have in their heart will be filled if they find people that look like them. That's what a lot of people think. The reality is that you don't feel comfortable where you are. You don't feel. He said, "I don't feel like I belong. I feel like an outsider where I am."
Sounds like he needs to find the white Jesus.
And I said, "Well, you don't." I didn't say. I thought you don't feel like you fit in because it's more of a self-confidence issue. It's more of a personal issue rather than actually how the world perceives you issue. If you feel confident who you are, actually you'd get along where you are because you realize people are the same pretty much everywhere you go in the world.
You got it.
People are the same everywhere in the world.
You got it.
Mostly.
100%.
There are extremes on either side. I'm not going to say everything exactly the same. But the center of people in the whole world are pretty much the same. Good people are good people, bad people are bad people.
Yes. And small note, you will often find a higher percentage chance of engaging with the more extreme people when you only focus yourself on that one people group. Fascinating, yeah? And so I can remember during college days when I, like many, went through an identity phase where I was trying to make sure that I connected with as many Koreans as I could.
I feel like we've all been through that.
And the reality is when I focused solely on the Korean world in college, those are the worst people I ever met. Like it was an ultra concentration of all the negative behavior traits that I knew that I didn't need to be around, and finding out that finding my identity in a larger thing than skin color, politics, capabilities, skills, innate traits, right? And finding my identity in God or finding my identity in something greater than myself, you end up finding, just like you said, that you can hang out with anybody and you can be at peace with all men when you find peace in yourself. It is the people who are trying to fill a God-sized hole in their heart with biological considerations like skin color and culture. You cannot fill a God-sized hole in your heart with things of race and politics and social.
And I get that. I agree 100%. But we've all been there.
Yes, we have.
We've had that feeling of, damn. I remember when I was young, I had this feeling of, and I think a lot of children of immigrant families feel this, a person without a home. Don't feel like you belong where you came from. Don't feel like you belong where you are. It's actually a really weird feeling. I felt like that when I was young. I'm older now, doesn't bother me whatsoever at all. Actually, I live amongst all white people.
Let's be a little bit more generous than that. Matt actually engages with all spectrums of the entire rainbow all the time.
Correct.
He just happens to live in a majority white area, but don't get it twisted. The man is multicultural all the way through.
Fair. I live in a very conservative part of Georgia.
Fair enough. I just don't want the audience to miss out the fact that you actually rub shoulders with the entire M&M bag of people. Okay, like people are stupid. They clip stuff. They're like, "Oh, man only hangs out with white people." You know, stupid
Whatever,
shit.
clip it.
I'm just trying to protect my man.
Clip it.
Clip it, guys.
Clip it.
Clip it. Absolutely. Well, so that being open to all. I mean, this is in today's world, Matt. When, as you just said, all people go through this identity phase of like, who am I? Who do I need to be? How can I connect with my roots? Whatever that means. Everybody goes through that phase. You agree?
Yes.
Today's America and today's society has a solution for you. Chop off your dick.
Which is wild. Dude.
Back in the day, they were just like, you're going through a phase? Just go away from everybody. Wear your goth pants and your black face makeup somewhere else.
The trending clip on X over the week was Elon Musk on Jordan Peterson saying, I lost my son. My son died because of the woke virus, and he's trans.
Can I also just add in how that interview was so terrible?
I hate Jordan Peterson
because Jordan Peterson.
He's the worst.
He kept cutting Elon off. I was like, bro, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up, Jordan. I literally wanted to yell at the screen. Shut the fuck up. This man is 10,000 times more brilliant than you in every facet. Let the man cook. Let the man talk. I felt like he was trying to one-up him every time.
It's just his demeanor.
He
has to be the smartest guy in the room.
So upsetting.
And the way he engages with people, it's really jarring. It's really abrasive.
It's terrible.
And my respect for him, which was already going very low.
It's negative now.
I was like, dude, I'm totally done with this.
I'm totally done with it. Dude, he ruined the interview, man. Like, I almost couldn't finish it, Matt, because I was like, shut the fuck up, Jordan. Like, your daughter's getting booty holed, P Diddy'd by other people, man, and you're out here like. Anyway, yes. Elon Musk, what did you think about that type of transparency? That was pretty hardcore because he's got what, 13 children?
He has a lot of children. My gut reaction was, I didn't like it.
Ooh.
My gut reaction was,
Even though that's his truth?
well, I don't know if it is. I feel like as a person and a man of responsibility and a man of family, you should take ownership of what your children do. And to blame the woke mind virus seems kind of like a cop-out.
I'm with you there, too. He is just as culpable.
If you have 15 kids with 5 different women and you see them 1 month a year,
not wrong.
And your kid goes off the rail, like, you can blame society all you want, but like,
you didn't raise them.
You didn't raise them. You knew who your wife was, or your baby mama. You knew who the baby mama was, and you left him there, and you didn't intervene, and you weren't there for it, and you were busy. And I get it. You're solving the world's problems. I get it. That's a big burden to have on your shoulders. But like, don't blame the world woke mind virus. Like, have a little personal responsibility. And everyone's like, oh yeah, Elon's doing it because he has a purpose, he has a mission. Well, actually, his purpose and mission should have taken care of his family first. I couldn't help but think that.
Yeah, I couldn't help but think it either. And after my frustration with Jordan keep cutting him off, my second response to that particular moment was, bro, actually, this is on you.
Yeah.
Because what you are giving the world is the same excuse that most people give the world, which is, I'm too busy, I'm doing stuff, so I'm going to let the government raise my kid instead.
And
right? Which is like, wait, what? No.
I found his son/daughter. I don't know what to call them. I found their thread.
Their response, yeah, I saw it too.
In Facebook or Meta or whatever, and Threads. I found it. And I read through it. And he was basically like, Elon's a liar. There's no way he would know any of this because he was never there. You can say all this you want. You talk about these stories when I was 4 years old. I was 4. How do you know this? Mm-hmm. You weren't even there.
You weren't even there, brother.
And I'm like, oh.
So, Matt, what you're saying is that never meet your heroes is what you're saying? Because all of our heroes are innately and deeply flawed?
I think we try to blame society for everything. I think we try to blame each other for everything. We try to blame the other side for everything. But we don't actually take into the other side's perspective and how they view it. Mm. I think if you really want to make a difference, you have to at least try to understand the other side and where they're coming from. Mm. Because if you want to solve problems, you have to actually understand what's broken, not think that your solution is better no matter what. Mm. And that's kind of where we sit. I think I sit there a lot of times also, is that no matter what, my solution is right and our way of thinking is the better way. But we don't know that for sure because we don't actually understand their way and why they believe what they believe. We think that they think a certain way because our side tells us that they think a certain way. But when have we ever sat there and actually thought and listened to like what they're thinking? Because again, having this conversation with these guys are not overly political people. And a lot of them agreed kind of what I say, because typically men who are in a badass Asian group would think a certain way. But I kind of understood the other side.
What do you think? So forget about what the world needs to do. What does Matt Kim need to do? Right, with all this wrestling of, and if I can extract ourselves just for a second at the meta of this conversation, it's you clearly care about your messaging. You clearly care about providing value and being helpful to people. At the same time, you also are deeply inquisitive and seeking understanding about people on the other side of both aisles, so that the assertion is that you can effectively help and be helpful. So there's a lot of assertions and assumptions here, but this is what I'm gathering. And so my question is, fuck the world. What is Matt Kim to do with the platform that has been given and blessed to him, and now, whether you like it or not, is under your command and under your responsibility. It's your responsibility now to carry this weight, this burden, this cross, this purpose, right? Like, this stemmed out of something. It grew into something. There are millions of people who are waiting and wanting to hear your voice, your opinion, your ideas, your thoughtful questions, and the amazing guests that you bring on to podcasts. Like, what is the Matt Kim to do with all of this power and influence?
Well, first, I think I need another cowboy hat.
need one too, man. We should both wear cowboy hats on this stream. That would completely differentiate us and make us completely non-Asian to the woke mind virus of Asians who believe that their identity and Asianness is their greatest attribute. We would just piss off all those Karens right there.
On Saturday, I went to the Atlanta Safari with my wife and daughter.
That's fun.
I love it there.
I've done it.
And I walked out, and without my wife looking, I put on my cowboy hat and I walked out the door. And she's like, no.
Come on, Dad. What's up? Why?
We're going to the safari in like rural Georgia. What else do I get to wear my hat? And she was like, no.
You need cowboy boots.
Yeah, they're so expensive.
Oh, they're so.
Even this hat was expensive.
Was it $700?
No,
$700?
That was like $200.
Oh, okay.
Which is a lot.
That's still a lot.
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of damn money for a hat.
I know.
Just for like a podcast bit. It's a lot of damn money.
I don't have a lot of knowledge about cowboy boots or hats, but I had a friend who
swear by them.
He had these cowboy boots. They were like snake or alligator. They're like $2,000 or whatever.
It's crazy.
But he said they were so comfortable.
Yeah, and I can't imagine boots being comfortable. Total side tangent. I think what we need to do is, if you're on the left or you're on the right, there are good people and bad people on both sides.
You got it.
And I think and people are more polarized now because it's election season, which I get.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to vote for Trump. It is what it is. I think I've been very clear on that and unapologetic about that. But politics is politics. It's such a small segment of society. Actually, the people that actually pay attention to politics is very small. Most people actually don't want to think about it. Most people have actually made their mind up on who they're going to vote for like months ago.
Or years ago.
And the rest of it, actually what we're doing, talking about politics, is just political entertainment, actually. Because you're not actually changing people's minds. The goal of politics is not to convince the other side to jump sides. It's to incentivize your side, more people on your side to show up to vote. That's actually politics. You're not trying to change anybody. The goal is to either piss off or encourage and move your side more than the other side moves their side.
If I could go a step further, I'd say that politics is about projecting the agendas that they're going to do so that people are more amenable and open to the way that they're being controlled in the future because they've been pre-programmed all the way through.
And I think we need to start thinking and focusing more about actual people.
What does that look like from a pragmatic perspective?
I don't know yet. Maybe we talk to, because there are good people and bad people on both sides. They just care about different things.
Yeah.
That's really what the difference is. I think for most people in center right, center left, most people, they just have a couple points that they care more about than the other side, which puts them on one side over the other. I think most people are really similar.
And
in general.
And through conversations with these individuals on the Matt Kim podcast, which you are effectively doing in so many ways, you've had people that are, Tucker Carlson level, and you've had people that are people that you've met in Savannah, Georgia, right? Doing guitar stuff and singing. I think it was Savannah. And so you're able to have conversations with the entire spectrum, which is really, if we can take a moment here, like amazing, if I may say, as a outside perspective, right? I've met so many influencers and people in power and influence that they can only attract a certain type of people group, right? You, however, have the uncanny ability where people just like you. No matter where they're coming from, if they're a big baller, bigger than you, or they're small, small fry, right? You have a very unique and special ability to connect very quickly. And I've seen it in moments where like, how the hell does that guy like that guy Matt so much, right? So quickly. Like, why is he like slobbering on? We got it in.
Dude,
we got it in.
You just can't go one episode without slobbing the mic.
We got it in.
One episode. I got just it in. One.
I got it.
Just go one.
So natural.
Just go one.
Like, I mean, it's a good thing. And so I think we need to double down on that. We need to double down on that. More great conversations, more eye-opening conversations, seeking understanding from both sides. And I think there's, if anything, the word that's coming up in my mind is like, maybe you're just a healer.
I think people are just so tired of the polarized nature of everything that is going on in the world. I know I'm so tired of it. It's so exhausting. Like spending time on Twitter, it's so exhausting. I feel like my brain fries after 30 minutes on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. Because it's just it's an inundation of just negative juju.
It's just negativity, negativity, and it flows into you. It flows into your vernacular. It flows into how you perceive the world.
Yeah.
It flows into what you spend the rest of your time doing. Like, I think Twitter may be the most toxic.
Maybe.
And that's how it used to be. So toxic. It was supposed to get better, but somehow the election season brings the worst out of people, and it's just as bad as it's always been.
It's even worse because now I'm seeing dead bodies on my
dead bodies, fights, porn, all kinds of stuff.
I see Ukrainians getting blown up within the first 5 seconds of the video. It's like, whoa! I was just kind of curious for a second, but so it's gotten extraordinarily worse. So I wonder if an experiment is coming up in the future where you just like take a week off and just like, what happens if I just unplug, maybe a month. But you could also do some
it's election season. You can't completely unplug. We still have to cover it.
That's true. But you
still have to cover it.
You can have some interesting conversations in the meantime, is what I'm saying. I mean, the word that's coming up, and I want to focus on it here. Maybe part of your purpose is to be a healer. I don't know what that looks like, by the way. That word just resonates. With
maybe that's a good call to action. If you have a topic or a type of person or a type of industry or you have a type of conversation that you would like to have, and there's something out there that you want to hear more about, maybe drop a comment, shoot me a note, and we'll see if we can make that happen.
Yeah, Matt's willing to have the conversation.
Like, I think it's important to talk to different types of people. We've stuck to kind of a niche. We've spoke about a lot of political issues, news types issues, but there's no reason why we can't expand it to more human experience because...
You know what the topics that I like the most, Matt? Deep, sophisticated subject matter experts in an area of life where their perspective gives you so much understanding behind the scenes. For example, like when a Joe Rogan or a Lex Friedman brings on like an AI scientist who is telling us really what's happening with the large language models and like what the malfeasance and the lack of security or controls around it. Like that's the shit that I like to hear. Or other stuff where it's like, sometimes you'll have Joe Rogan bring on a guy who's they just live this extraordinarily unique life, backpacking over in Australia, spending their entire, you might have seen the Lex Friedman one where he was out in the jungles of South America.
Wearing a suit, by the way.
Wearing a suit, sweating. Yeah, like, bro.
Why is he wearing a suit in the jungle doing an interview?
That
was weird.
Persona. It's the persona.
That was weird. I could have let you borrow my hat.
Yeah, you look like a sweat ball, bro. It didn't look
let you
good.
Borrow my hat.
So you understand my point is that like those conversations of deep technical expertise and deep subject matter expertise behind the scenes, I love because they're so full of juice. Like Sean Ryan when he brought on The Hacker, one of my favorite episodes because I resonate with that stuff. Like I know about it, but for him to be able to validate and say like we are listening, we are watching everything. It's like I knew it. So those type of like deep subject matter expertise type conversations. If you're a subject matter expert and behind the scenes on anything, those are really unique perspectives that people don't hear a lot often about. Like one with Joe Rogan when he brought on the lady who was like the most researched in the porn industry. Like it's not like you go seeking this out, but frankly, that conversation was like, whoa, they are really controlling the minds of men with porn. Like we need to understand these algorithms and how they affect people and and the physiological and biological effects of consuming porn nonstop and these types of things. So this stuff is really cool. I think it's good insight.
If you have someone that you like to see me talk to, definitely drop a comment. Otherwise, every week we come back, we do a show, we talk about different types of issues, topics, things that are in mind. Really, this show is a stream of two consciousnesses coming together. I think that's how podcasts used to be.
Yeah. Where
it's just two ideas and you see where it goes, which is interesting. I think a lot of podcasts these days have become very interviewee, question, answer, or topic-based, or they're recording for the goal of clipping.
They're focused on algorithm, right? They're focused on clippability, viewability, virability, short form. They're like, it's all the technicals. And in a lot of ways, focusing on all that sometimes removes the soul of the content. And I think what you and I have here is a real, it's not super unique, but I think it's great that you and I can come together and we can always just banter and talk about whatever.
And if you enjoy the show, if you enjoy the content, the best way to help us is to share, tell a friend, hey, I watched these two idiots on the internet and they're kind of enlightening sometimes they're thoughtful, and sometimes they're talking out of their ass, but I enjoy it. Let a friend know.
And buy a t-shirt.
Thank you, everyone. See you guys next week.
Yeah.
I like my hat.
I am a little jelly.